Yogi. Yogi. What's going on in here? This does not look like car parts. Not at all. What in the world? What is he doing over here? Yogi? Yogi? What is this?
What?
Honey? You got stuff to do in the garage.
No, I don't. I'm done in the garage. I'm so finished.
Honey, you're never, ever done in the garage. What about CK and Pepper? There's work to do.
Nobody watches my videos.
Yes, they do. Come on. Come on, Yogi.
Fine.
Wait.
What?
You gotta say it.
Oh.
You know.
I don't want to say it.
You gotta say it.
Fine. Let's fix it.
Oh, come on. Say it like you mean it.
Let's fix it.
Right, he's back.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, it's time for a quick update on Pepper. I got a few outstanding items on this car, but man, just take a look at that paint. Isn't it amazing? And guess what? It's not paint. It's a wrap. Yeah, it's a wrap. Look at that. Holy crap, this is awesome. It's called Vampire Red, and it's made by a Nose Tech. And I had a guy out here in Houston named Darren at D3 Motorsports. His crew put this thing on, and it looks phenomenal. It really does. So I'm happy with this. All right, so what we got to work on is I have two nagging issues in this car. The first one is the airbag, which we're not going to tackle in this video. The other one is the power steering is leaking fluid. And I believe that it is a problem with the reservoir itself. And here's why. Because the steering works fine. I get power steering because there's adequate enough fluid in the pump to operate the system. It's primed and then there's some in the pump. But every time I put more in there, it leaks all over the block and then it leaks onto my garage. And it's always done that since I bought the car. I had replaced the O-rings during the engine rebuild thinking that could probably help. It did not. Let's take that power steering reservoir out and fix my insulation for the summer. We're gonna do that too. Okay, let's get started. You know, I could just work on the car right here. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm gonna turn her around. Should have done that first. All right, let's do it. Right, now that the car is backed up, we're looking good. Of course, as you guys know, I rebuilt this engine. I had it bored out and I rebuilt it myself and it looks pretty damn good. And that's why I take it a little personal when little puddles, see that dark area right in that spot right there is puddled. You can see the reflection of power steering fluid. So I'll get my fluid extractor and take the puddle out so it's not, it's oftentimes it creates a false positive on oil leaks too, because it will seep down on whatever direction it wants. So if it goes down this side because you made a right turn or a left turn, whatever, then that's the deal. So it's gonna drip over here and then you're trying to chase it down and then if it turn the other way, it'll drip over there. Anyway, so let me get this. I'm gonna have to take the throttle body off and the intake box, of course. You would think that you didn't have to, but the actual, if I can get something down there to turn that little star-shaped thing, that's the coupling, if I can pull that off. But I want to verify that this thing is bone dry. So let's do that first. Because I'm not crazy, I know it is. All right, this car is kind of warmed up. It was driven earlier today. Yeah, look. Even if cold was the case, come on, camera. There you go, cold. Yeah, and nothing. I mean, I see a little something, but I think this thing dips all the way Let me see if I can get a light on that so we can look. Come on, focus, focus, focus. There we go. Okay. Yeah. There's nothing in there. Okay, so now I gotta just see if I mean, there's no way I can get in there. I'll have to take the throttle body off, like I said. Okay, let's do it. All right, throttle body is out. Airbox is out. I always have trouble with that mass airflow sensor connector. It's a pain in the butt. Anyway, I got it. Everything looks good. So now I have access to that little connector. So I should be able to just loosen it with my tiny little hands. Dude, if I have to turn that neck up, I'm gonna be mad. That one's always susceptible to little tiny vacuum leaks if you don't tighten them right. All right, get a tool. Okay, loosened up. I just used some needle nose pliers to loosen that thing up and take it off of here. There's a 10 mil attachment here. Now this is friction fit, so it just comes right off, as you can see. All right, so let's take a look in there. Let me switch to the other lens. Abracadabra. And there. Okay, so yeah, so you can see, I hope, maybe, yeah, there's the fluid. See the fluid? What's interesting is, and concerning at the same time, is it's below this line. So the leak could be at that water line and not this water line on the reservoir. So how am I gonna test that? Well, I need to do a vacuum test on it and see if it holds pressure. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, I use the vacuum. It's really hard to do it with that. It's really hard to show you and do it at the same time. But anyway, it's a suction cup here over the top here, and it holds pressure about 5 PSI before it breaks loose. So, I mean, the test, the more and more I think about it, I don't think it's leaking from here. Look how plump those O-rings are. And there's really no detritus or grime or anything around this area to indicate that a fluid has been leaking out of this thing. So what could it be? Well, it could be the plastic housing down here. There, see, the pump is up here in the front, and then the housing where it draws the fluid in is on the back, and it's a separate part. So based on that line there, it has to be somewhere at that level is where it's leaking, because if it was leaking anywhere lower than that, then the water level or the fluid level would be at that level. That's my guess. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run a borescope on the backside, and maybe I can see some grime or something, because I'm telling you, this thing does not hold fluid very long. It dumps it out. Okay, let's see what I can find. All right, let's just look along the back. So here's, yeah, see all the power steering fluid, just all green. That's how you can. Yeah, so this right here, you should expect to see if you have an active leak. You should see dust or grime all over this oil. So this looks like this is where it's leaking from. So maybe it's still leaking from the collar? I don't know. Tell all in here, man. Looking around. And you can see that's where it connects to the pump. And that's just normal grime. Looks really wet right there. That looks like physical damage.
Meanwhile,
all right, fast forward a few weeks. We're back at it, and now I've got a power steering pump as well as a new reservoir. I didn't mean to buy a new reservoir. I don't know why I did that. And I should say an expansion tank. I thought I was buying this, but regardless, they weren't that expensive. In fact, they weren't expensive at all. I think this one was like 30 bucks and this one was like 50 bucks. So not a bad price. So I've got a new pump. Well, new to me. Got a new to me pump new reservoir and a new expansion tank. So I'm gonna get this thing prepped, but before I do, I need to take care of the engine and get that ready for removal. And what that means basically is I've got to make room to extract that thing, right? So the pump is right here, and this is a shroud, so you got to get this off of the pump to get it out. So it's a little bit tricky, but the first thing you got to do, obviously, is get the serpentine belt out. And but before you do that, of course, you need to mark the direction. That's what this is for. I'm going to mark it to make sure you know which way it goes. And then you just slowly start peeling back the onion. And clearly this centerpiece here is going to have to come out, mainly so that you can get the pump to go back out of here and then up and out through this opening you're going to make. But that also means that we need to loosen the air conditioning compressor here, because it shares one of the bolts here, and I may need to loosen it in the back to kind of wiggle it out of the way, but we'll see. And I think I may need to mess with the alternator too to make room on this side to maybe mount it over here. But let's take a look at it. But first things first, so we gotta get the serpentine belt off, and that down there is an M24. Let's take care of it. So I got the M24, my 1/2 inch on here, and you want a little bit more leverage than you think you're gonna need. That way it makes it easier for you to just loosen that tensioner there to get the belt off. And I've already marked it, so I'm gonna do that, but I need more than one hand or two hands. So I'm gonna put you down and then I'll come back. All right, that's taken care of. We'll just get this out of our way. And you should already know how to take this off and put it back on when you're done. So I'm just gonna leave it right there. I don't need to take it all the way out. All right, that's good enough. Now, let's unfortunately take all of this off, starting with this. And these are always fun, you know, when they've been heat cycled a few times and then you're trying to get them off. It's always fun. You want to be careful because everything that you push in one direction affects everything down over here, so be careful. Yeah, take that off. This off, the clamps, and this should pop right out. Okay, let me go ahead and take care of that. Okay, that's all taken care of. I pulled that valve out here, and we'll get these clamps out. No big deal. These are M7s. And one thing about these is that you will get vacuum leaks like crazy here if you're not careful when you're installing and reinstalling these clamps. The collars will get curled up underneath, they'll tear, and then you'll start detecting vacuum leaks. And I have a small vacuum leak right now, real small, and it pops up every, I don't know, 50 miles, or if I let it idle for a long period of time, it'll pop up, and I just clear it and keep on going. That's it. So, all right, I'm gonna loosen up all 4 of those and then yank that out. And basically, you want it loose enough to get these collars to pop off, and it's gonna be kind of a challenge. And you want to push it to one side like that, and then get the collars out of the way, and it'll make your life easier trying to get this thing out. All right, so now that that's out, and this is always fun doing this, and I've already torn these once, so I don't want to tear them, and there, I didn't tear it, but I popped it off. Okay, so now that's out, you can see how much more room we have. Look at that. Sorry about the lighting. All right, I've taken the pulley off, and I've disconnected the pump from the housing here, So, and this needs to be loosened up here. This is I guess this would be the sender, and then the return is on the back. And so this needs to be loosened, and then you can kind of snake this out. But before I do, I need to do a couple of things. I need to get the rest of the power steering fluid out of that reservoir, so I reduce the amount of mess that I'm gonna make. But regardless, you're gonna make some mess, right? But you wanna get as much out of there. And I showed you already, there's not much, but there's enough in the reservoir to pressurize the system. So that means that I need to pull whatever's in there. The other and final thing you need to do is to prep the pump that you are gonna replace it with. And that basically means that you disconnect anything that is either cut off during the extraction or needs to be replaced. And clearly here is, this one's pinched and cut off. And you need a Porsche special tool for this, but you really don't. This thing is basically like a John Guest fitting, where you just have to hold this collar down, the red part, and pull at the same time, and that comes right out. So that's what I did. And I used the flat-headed screwdriver to hold the collar down and then yanked that up. And you can see that it's bit again. So what I need to do is hold it down with my thumb and pull it out. There. Each time you let it go, it bites again, so that's good. It means it's in good shape. Anyway, that's how you do it. I can't do it in my single hand here. Come on. Come on. Nah. Okay, there. I had to use a screwdriver and hold it down. And that's that, right? So you got to make sure that that's pulled back, and then you got to do the same thing on the original one. So I'm going to have to get my screwdriver in there and hold that collar, and we'll see what happens. But again, let's capture some fluid first. Man, I'd say that thing worked pretty good. It got the fluid out in a couple of pulls. I've been using a turkey baster for the longest time. And now, I don't have to. Thanks to Yogi Mama, she got me this for Christmas. But I'm going to check and see if there's any more in the reservoir before we move on. All right, let's get this thing going. I hope I can catch any and all fluid that's going to come out. U-belt are in my way. With one hand. Okay, that's off.
What's going on here?
Well, I'm making my own special Porsche tool with a cheap fork here so that I can push the collar down on both sides while I'm pulling up on the pipe. So I'm just going to get my cutoff wheel here and cut this and then squeeze these a little bit closer, and we'll test it out on the extra pump. Just a little bit. Okay, that should work. So let's try that again. This goes in here. The problem is this thing is so soft. It's soft metal. So get it like that. Hold. It should come out. Okay, let's try it. This has been a Yogi's Tech Tip. Okay, this is showing that the pipe is out finally. That was a pain in the ass. Now I gotta get the front. All right, let's do it. Yeah, you know, I'm having flashbacks from when I ripped this engine out of this car, and how much of a pain in the ass this thing is to get it out from the back. It sits on this little dowel hole, I guess, for lack of a better term, with that cylinder down there. Let's just say that it's very difficult to yank this thing out when, you know, it's threaded in and then the bolt does not come out from here because it runs into this turn. See that right there? So a little bit of yanking to get it, and okay, so I've got it, because there's one bolt on the back side right here
that needs to be disconnected for this thing to come out. And yet it's still going to be a bit of a pain to get it out because of the angle that it's in. And the repair manual says to loosen up this side, which I started to by loosening the fill neck, and then I got the alternator so that you can just take the whole frame out. But I don't think I need to do that. So I'm going to continue to wiggle this and get it out. And then we'll put it on the workbench and see if we can identify the leak. Because the last thing I want to do is put another pump or another reservoir for it to just start leaking again. So because you can see what happens when that happens. All of that is power steering fluid, and very expensive power steering fluid at that. And it's all the way over here too. So once I pull this out, we'll get a better look at what the crankcase looks like. And then I'm gonna use my fluid extractor and clean all this up, obviously, before we button it back up. But gotta get that thing out. Let's do it. All right, there, I got it. Man, I tell you what, it's like some serious yoga twisting to get it to come out. It may have been easier just to kind of loosen the frame up on this side by the fill neck, but again, you got to get your wrench in there blind, or you have to use an endoscope, and even then, your hands are going to get in the way of the endoscope. But anyway, it's out. Now let's take it out on the bench and figure out why it's leaking. I thought I had fixed it, but I guess not. All right, let's fix it. Okay, so this pump is on my workbench now, and it doesn't show any signs of damage. But like I showed you earlier in the video, it maintained a fluid level probably around here. So that tells me that it's leaking somewhere above it. And since all of the fluid is in the back and sitting on the crankcase, the prime suspect is this. This is either an expansion tank or a reservoir, or the other one's an expansion tank. Either way, this is the culprit. So I've taken off the two 13 mils, and now I got to pull these two pins here that hold it in place, and then I'm going to see if I can pressurize this tank and see if I can find a leak. Let's do it. All right, so this is the assembly here. Now note that there's no residual power steering fluid, no grime anywhere near this section that goes right into the pump. So, and the pump is pretty clean. So the pump is not leaking. Pump is fine. This guy is the chump. All right, I've got the reservoir on the bench. And yeah, I got a big leak. No, I'm just kidding. That actually needs to cover with my hand, yeah. But unfortunately, it's not leaking anywhere that I can see. So the only grimy spot that I see is right there, but there's no smoke coming from it. And from this end, I have that pinched off pretty good. I could probably stick my finger. You can see some stuff coming out of it, but nevertheless, the pressure should be building in here, and smoke should start coming out of places like that. So why is that concerning? Well, it's it's leaking, but I don't know from where. And I was pretty certain that it was from this reservoir because there was still fluid in it. But it's not leaking. So this kind of makes me feel like the leak is somewhere else, but it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you look down here where it's puddling, it's clearly leaking from here in the back. And if it was leaking from this pipe, it would be completely empty. You wouldn't have a closed loop, and I have power steering pressure. So I don't know. Dang, I hate replacing parts not knowing if that's going to fix it. All right, well, thanks to my trusty ultrasonic cleaner, I took care of the reservoir. and I've let it dry overnight. I'm in really no rush to get this thing back in, you know, because I have 2 cars. So this guy can get driven while this guy's being worked on, for now anyway. I am putting that car for sale, but not before we do some more work on it and get those wheels taken care of. All right, so let's put this thing back together. Pretty easy. There's a couple of pins that line up everything. And then there is this little contraption here. This actually mounts through the dowels here, or the guides, if you will. And then this on the end connects to that shroud. Okay, well, let's stop talking and get it done. All right, I'm using my Insta360 Go. Actually, it's not a 360, it's my Insta Go. For this, so I can use both my hands. New O-rings. This one's not new here, I'll be honest, but it's in really good shape. I got a new O-ring right here, and verified that the little Teflon collar is also in there. That's very important, otherwise it's not going to seal very well. Okay, I think I'm going to add an addendum here. What I think I should have done was put the Teflon collar on the male part of the reservoir instead of letting it sit inside of the pump. I suspect by not doing that caused some cavitation and some air to enter the closed loop when I finished this project, and then it finally settled down and stopped leaking, and the pump is now working perfectly. Okay, so now that that's all been verified and we're clean and we're good to go, we're just going to pop these in like this, right? And then you stick these pins in. And that's almost it, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that the pin comes through and locks in to the pump itself. So we'll use a little dead blow hammer or something. And you don't need a whole lot of force here, and I'm just going to give it a little pop so it'll land in place, so it'll end up in place. And yeah, see, so it's just a little bit. It's not going to go all the way because it's got a tapered end, so it's going to stop because the hole isn't wide enough for it to slide all the way through. That wouldn't make any sense. Okay, this looks good. What I'm hoping is that it doesn't leak, right? Okay, well, let's get this in the car. So this right here is the new pump. I'm not going to put the old pump back in. I'm risking it. It's the same exact pump, by the way, as the one that I took out. And here, let me verify that with you. What did I do with the pump? Oh, here it is. Duh. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, you can see it right there. It says Luck, right? So this is a OEM replacement part, or OE replacement part. So we should be okay. You know, I don't know. Maybe this is the one that's leaking. I doubt it. But if it is, then I'm going to take it out of the equation because I cannot prove where it's leaking. For all I know, it could have been leaking back here and throwing off my reading as far as the fill level, but I don't think so. And that other one is over there. So I'm not using that. All right. So we'll just, all right, new bolts. Can never have enough of these bolts, man. I'm telling you. All right, so now you got a nice view of the inside here. Make sure you can see what I see. That's what I like about this thing is you can check to make sure that you see everything. Cool. All right. And I'm gonna pull these towels and see if it absorbed all of the fluid. This one is soaked, man. Look at this one. Wow. Wow. It's just dripping. Ugh. All right. Yeah, I mean, that's way better than it was, but it's not perfect. I'm going to keep pulling some of that out. And then there was some back there as well. I'm going to need to use my endoscope for that. So here's the camera. that is completely dirty. It's a tiny little lens. And I have a link in my affiliate section in my video description. So if you're interested in something like this for your mechanical work, using my links will help the channel. Yeah, you can see there's a puddle, several actually. Wow, it goes all the way back there. How the hell does power steering fluid get all the way over there? And it doesn't look like it's flinging everywhere. But regardless, I got to clean that up. By the way, I use this fluid extractor to pull out the brake fluid or the power steering fluid. But it's great and all, but these O-rings get stuck. And you can't undo it without superhuman strength or a vise. So, not recommended. All right. I've got the majority of it all cleaned up. You can see that, oh, there's a little puddle right there. All right, I'm going to have to clean that up. All right, so I cleaned up most of the power steering fluid. I'm still soaking some up back there by the vacuum reservoir and on the side of the starter. Again, it's just, it can't have just been squirting everywhere because it wouldn't look so clean in here. So I still don't know, but at this point, replacing the part is all I can do. So let me clean this up, and then what we'll do is we'll snake in the pump again and get it set up. Whoa. All right, getting close. Thought I'd bring you in so maybe you can see the magic happening while it's happening. There it goes. Ha ha. All right. So, the Yogi's tech tip on this one would be to come in, get it in first, right? And then bring it in on this edge at a turn. Just snake it in. I mean, that's all I can tell you, man, because there's no map, really. It's just wiggling and snaking it in. Or you can take the pulley off you can take the tensioner pulley off, and that'll open it up pretty good too. Okay, now I got to connect this one back, as well as the one in the back, of course, and bolt it all in. And dang, finally. Okay, so let's do that, right? Now, you just want to get it threaded in, right? Because you got to wiggle everything else in place. And then I can't really show you what's going on back here, but I can certainly illustrate it with my voice. All right, I am getting ready to stick it in the hole. And now we're in. Okay, verify fitment, not coming out, all the way in. Okay, it's in. Not bad. All right, so that's a 17, and the back there's no threads, so we'll put in the 13s back in here. That down there is already tightened. A few more things to do here, and then we can get this air conditioning compressor back in. That should be so much fun. All right. Yeah, so what's important here is that you do not over tighten this thing, right? It's a compression fit. So you just tighten it until it's snug, and then you let the O-ring and the compression itself do the work. So here we go. That's almost there. I like to do it with, one finger so that I'm not over pulling, I'm not over torquing. All right, let's get a different angle. Here we go, it's a good angle right here. Okay, and then you just, see it sat in. I felt that O-ring go in. Hope I didn't cut it. We'll know for sure if it's, there. All right there. The trick here with the HVAC compressor here is this, right? This is the third bolt in the back. And like I said, I had a hard time getting it to sit. Now, it's mainly because of this bolt back here. As I mentioned, it does not come out. So it makes it extremely difficult to get this threaded part of the bolt It's a skirt over the top, and you can see all the scratches and, you know, basically it rubbing up against it until it lines up and falls in. And then you can thread it. So what I'm going to try to do is get this thing up as high as possible, that it will allow me. And I don't know what that means. I mean, maybe this just doesn't make any sense, man, why you would do it like this. But anyway, okay, so that's the plan. Wiggle, wiggle, get it in, tighten it down. Get all that? All right, let's do it. All right, so there you go. I'm showing it on my endoscope here. I figured it out. The trick is to put this dowel or spacer on the threaded part first, and then either hold it with your hand or tape it or whatever to hold those two pieces together. And then the dowel part of the spacer is short enough to skip right over the lip of the casing, pop right in, and now we're good to go. All right, so I'm gonna tighten this up and finish. Look at that, see? It's really in there. Cool. All right. Okay, I figured this would be a good place to pause and give you an update on what I'm doing. You know, I didn't think time lapse would add any value here, so let me just summarize for you. All right, so I left you off here, and I showed you what I had to do in the back. These two bolts here are a no-brainer. In the front, there's only 3 holding this together. And as far as the power steering pump is concerned, these 13 mils here, and then there's one on the back side. This is why you got to remove that. And that's it. Everything else is clipped in. There's no power or anything going to the power steering pump. It's all mechanical. And that's it. So the ground is in. This grounding plug is in. By the way, if you guys don't know this, this is where you would jump your vehicle if you can't get to the front, or for any reason you need to charge your car or whatever. This is your positive post, and then your negative post would be somewhere on the block or on the frame. It's really handy when you want to add power or jump it from here and not from the front. All right, so anyway, this side here is all done, bracketed back in. The bolts are in on the support. The only thing I got left to do here, it looks like, is the alternator, and then tighten it up. And then I will bring you back in once I get the cross member here in and start the throttle body. Okay, everything's buttoned up. This took a little bit longer than I hoped because I accidentally packed the cover, the cap, with the return item that I bought that did not, it was broken. So I had to open up the packaging before I mailed it off. Good thing I did, because I didn't have another cap. Anyway, this is all done. The ground is done. Like I said, I've clamped it to here. Everything is nice and snug. And again, the whole point of doing this loosely is so that you can get the throttle body positioned properly before you put the final tightening sequence on it. I want it just enough to bite these. That way they're lined up properly. Okay. It's way easier. The things you learn by taking an engine apart and then putting it back together makes these things a lot easier to work with. Okay. Less intimidating too. All right. Now what I want to do is put on a glove, because I don't want this thing to shred me. Because torquing this thing is going to be tough. But if you've got it ugga-dugga, this makes it easier. You don't want to shred your hands. And there. All right. All right, now, throttle body. Right? Let's get this thing back on as well. There we go. Click, click. Love those sounds when it's not a cracking sound. Okay. So you might think you're done, but you're not. All you really did here was set up the fitment. You want to make sure that this right here is lined up with the throttle body and there's no overlap, just like you did on the cross member. And now what you need to do is, now that I've snugged up one side, I'm going to remove this and the throttle body again so it gives me easy access to the clamps back there. Tighten it all up because this is where it's supposed to be. We're approaching the finish line. I bet you guys thought I was going to forget the serpentine belt, huh? You're probably pointing and screaming at the TV going, hey, wait a minute, you forgot something. But nope, I didn't. It's in there. All right, airbox, snorkel, boom, boom, start her up. Oh, and, fluid. What's that floating around down there? Bits of plastic. Okay. So come in like this. Down. That's your target right there. See? Just like that. And settle it in. And then what you want to do is get that in. And you want to make sure it doesn't pinch or kink. And look all the way around, run your finger, the whole shebang to make sure that you've got it set up right. All right. And then tighten it. Okay. So I got a 10 mil bolt right here. Let's go ahead and put the mass airflow sensor back on. Snake it through the little cable guide. And sometimes I'm still amazed how I still remember a lot of this stuff without even thinking about it. Okay. There. And all right. So now we'll tighten this bad boy up. Now, this is important on how you set this one up, right? Because you want to make sure it's easily accessible, but not interfering with the sensor. See, when you slam stuff is bound to break. This thing is so brittle. Luckily, it was something minor. Okay. And on this, you've got a little port right there that it goes in. And click. And there's a little conduit right under here, just to kind of keep everything nice and tight. And now you can do that. So this is the fluid extractor that I mentioned requires superhuman strength to pull back that double O-ring plunger. Not to mention the fact that pushing it also caused it to pop off the handle. So totally useless, this thing. So I thought about getting another one. I was like, okay, I'll just go get another brand. They're not too expensive. They're 10 bucks, right? So let's open it up and take a look. Uh-oh. Yeah, the same freaking model. Something tells me I'm going to have a similar problem here. I mean, it's a totally different box or brand and everything. But apparently it's a universal model. So this is the brand that was given to me as a gift. So I went and bought another brand. And as you can see, this one's 4Stone. But they're identical, man. So be careful buying this brand. Like I said, the plunger, I don't know what happens, but the power steering fluid or something does not play well with those O-rings. And it becomes almost impossible to pull up on the extractor. So I'm going to try using this one. And maybe I won't have the problem. Take your medicine. There you go. Yeah, all of it. Good girl. So this is the sound that I was referring to
That's
earlier.
a terrible sound.
That sound you hear typically means that there's air in the system. And lo and behold, when I looked into the reservoir, there was indeed a bunch of bubbles. So I was concerned that maybe I didn't connect the reservoir to the pump correctly. But Yogi Mama came in and helped me. She started the car while I sat in the back with an endoscope. And all of a sudden, it just started working and went quiet, and it is no longer leaking. I'm pretty sure it may have been that Teflon collar settling down before it stopped leaking. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. I'm not going to make any promises about when my next one's going to be released, but like I said, I'm going to be shifting gears to the Turbo S, so be sure to look out for that. And if you're interested in looking at 1/64 scale versions of race cars or Lego race cars, be sure to check out my other channel, the Yogi Collection. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.